All right, good Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for hopping on NCSA Live alongside Senior Recruiting Coordinator Danny Koenig, former Division I collegiate swimmer and college coach. I'm David Kamisic, here to entertain and educate you on the recruiting process as we do every Tuesday here on NCSA Live. So thanks for tuning in, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. I always appreciate you hopping on and learning a little bit about the recruiting process.
That's right, here to answer questions primarily, but we also want to educate, right? So we got a topic in mind. It's kind of a continuation of what we've been talking about. Last week we covered how to email a college coach. One of the most important methods of communication to understand. And again, that's all coming proactively. Today we're going to address a few different things. I think things that come up, different sorts of electronic communications, texting, I think is a way to go about things. Social media is one that comes up a lot. And I think parents have a lot of questions about that in particular, but we wanted to address those up front. So we'll just kind of continue this process, talking about how to communicate with college coaches. Again, the main message, always, always, always take the proactive approach in recruiting.
Yeah, so we encourage you guys to ask any questions, whatever platform you're watching us on. Jot a question down there at the bottom. We'll get to as many as we can in the next half hour or so. It can be regarding this topic or anything just in the realm of recruiting. We'll get to as much as we can here. Like Danny mentioned, we talked about really emailing college coaches, the importance of doing that, being proactive in doing that. So we're going to shift that focus a little bit. As technology continues to evolve, the NCAA recruiting rules continue to evolve. The way the coaches and student athletes communicate continue to evolve. So talk about social media, text messaging, things that have popped up and really become critical in the recruiting process that 5-10 years ago really didn't exist a whole lot.
Right, and actually, interestingly, in the case of social media, things were very restrictive up front. I think they just kind of said, hey, this is a little bit unregulated and we don't know what to do with this. So they had some pretty heavy sanctions on the ways in which coaches could interact through social media. Those have actually loosened up a little bit, which is a little bit different. A lot of the recruiting rules have narrowed things for what coaches are able to do, a little bit more restrictive by grad year. We've seen a lot of that with sports like volleyball, softball. They were committing middle schoolers, which is a little bit crazy.
A lot
crazy. Right? It's a lot crazy, right? But it does happen, right? We are getting roster openings submitted to us by college coaches for the 2025 grad class. Those are juniors, right? Social media in particular is a little bit more open, interestingly, and they actually do see that now as like an electronic form of communication between coaches and athletes. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Talking to college coaches, calling college coaches, I think that should be everything. You're trying to get on the phone with the college coach and start to build that relationship. Texting, we'll touch base on that there very briefly, and then of course the social media side of things. So I guess number one, when we're saying how to talk to college coaches, what are we really looking for at that point?
Yeah, so at that point, you've gotten pretty serious with that school if you're on the phone with them, right? So again, we talked last week about emailing college coaches. Again, you can check out the clip on YouTube. You can check it out on our Facebook page if you missed that one. A lot of good info there. Getting on the phone with a college coach is within the process. It's more times than not going to be the first time that you talk to a coach or communicate with a coach. Most of that's going to start via email or text messaging or social media. But once you get to the point that you're on the phone with a college coach, that's a really good sign. That college coach is taking maybe 15, 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour sometimes to really learn about you and talk about their program. So they've spent a lot of time identifying you, evaluating you, getting to know you as a potential recruit. So by the time you get on the phone with them, that's a really, really encouraging sign that positive things are coming, and that's a relationship they're wanting to build with you.
Yeah, it's the quickest way to do that. And obviously, they can't do that until the NCAA says that they can. So phone calls are a big part of it, but that was everything that I was working towards as a college coach. Now, as soon as I could contact somebody, I was trying to get them on the phone. Right. And that wasn't the day that recruiting started. I had been tracking those kids in some case for a year or more. Right, 18 months, 2 years in some cases, just kind of depending on how competitive it is. But if I was very serious about an athlete, I wanted to get them on the phone. Number one, to kind of gauge their interest. Number two, to tell them about my program. And number three, ask them some questions, right? Start to dive into who am I recruiting to be a part of my program for 4 years? Do you fit our culture? Are you the kind of person that I want to continue to have conversations with? So that phone call is a huge turning point, and it's nothing to be afraid of. I think if you're aiming to get contacted by a college coach, that should be the goal. But you need to be prepared. You can't just get on the horn and just kind of fumble around. Like, you need to have intent for that, and there are things that athletes can do proactively to get to that point with a coach.
We got a fun fact here. Research has shown that on average, college coaches receive only about 7 phone calls from recruits every week. So again, you don't have to wait for a college coach to call you. As a student athlete, you can initiate that phone call with a college coach. Now, again, like Danny mentioned, based on the sport, based on the division level, that coach may or may not be able to pick up the phone and talk to you. So as a freshman or sophomore, if you're calling a Division I or a Division II school, that coach can't pick up the phone and have a conversation with you.
Correct.
But once the certain dates hit, and again, depending on the sport, depending on the division level, we're looking at June 15th between sophomore and junior year, or September 1st of your junior year, that's when the coaches can pick up the phone and call you, but also they can answer your call and have a conversation with you. Now, typically, you don't want that to be your first form of reaching out to a coach. You usually want there to be the email, some of the initial introductory type stuff, so that when you do have that conversation or you do call that coach, they know who you are. You're not just a random junior in high school calling a college coach and that coach has no idea who you are as a recruiter, a student, or anything.
Right, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but again, college coaches want to be well prepared for that as well. Kind of, reference the NCSA site, know who you are, what you bring to the table, are you really interested? And there will naturally just be follow-up questions with that. Just in an effort to learn a little bit more about that person, that student athlete, and that's what the athlete should be doing with the coach. Coach, what's your program like? What's your coaching philosophy? What's your training schedule look like? Right? What can I expect out of someone, out of a coach that's recruiting someone in my grad class, right? What are you really looking at? So again, have an intent, have a purpose, know why you're calling, but that should be a really good goal for any of your top prospects who wants to get on the phone with that coach.
Yeah, and as a student athlete, you want to be the one initiating and driving that process. Mom and dad, don't pick up the phone for your student athlete and call that college coach. Again, a college coach isn't going to initially want to speak with you. They're going to want to speak to the student athlete. Parents will eventually get involved. And we've talked about this before, but for a 16, 17-year-old kid, that could be a very scary process trying to have that recruiting conversation, that adult conversation with a college coach. And I think it's important that a student athlete is prepared. That's obviously part of what NCSA does. That's what we're here to help kind of coach student athletes and families through that process. But it sounds silly, but parents, the best thing you can do is probably help your student athlete practice. What questions are you going to ask? What are you going to bring up about yourself? Just even little things within how to use proper diction and how to, just be adult sounding on the phone so you don't sound like you're a juvenile trying to impress that college coach. So more than likely that's not going to always be the right
Well, I think the best parallel for that is that it's almost like an interview. You almost prepare for that like an interview. You'll do practice interviews. You need to know what questions to be asking, but also what you're going to be asked. Another good resource, high school club coaches, right? If you're struggling to get, this is a little bit of an insider tip, right? If you're struggling to get the college coach on the horn, ask your high school or club coach to set that up, right? I think that the messaging there is that you're well prepared, you're well communicated, you're very serious and have had these discussions. You kind of know what you're gunning for. So if you have the club coach, the high school coach also speaking on your behalf, really it's that you want to get on the phone with that coach, but to have the backing of somebody else can be very helpful. So practicing with parents, practicing with a coach, kind of maybe they have some insider information. They know what college coaches are looking for, right? Never hurts to have an additional resource on your side to help this through.
And I think just like parents, you don't want to rely on that coach. You don't want to rely on the club or high school or travel coach. Like you still need to take that initiative and you still need to be the one that's having that communication. But again, if a coach can be sort of a third-party bridge to get you connected with a coach that you haven't been able to speak with, it's certainly something to take advantage of.
Sure.
Again, it's little things, right? Like don't be doing it in a mall. Don't be doing it in the car while you're driving. Be at home, be focused, be locked in on that conversation. Again, a college coach is giving you their full attention when they talk to you, and they're expecting that you give your full attention to them as well. You don't want to, again, have a bad impression, because again, first impressions can lead a long way within those conversations.
Sure, and a lot of that's going to be led in by electronic communication. So text messages, emails, it's not really a cold situation. It's planned out, right? A lot of coaches will either do that maybe right around when you get done with school, but typically in the evening, right? So I go home from workout, I get home, and I usually get on the horn. I was making maybe 10, 20 calls a night. Just depends on where we were. So, that's going to be scheduled ahead of time, and it should give you some time to prepare. Again, very much like an interview. What questions should you be expecting? What questions do you want to ask of that coach? This is your time to figure that out if that's a good fit for you as well.
Yeah, and typically off season is going to probably be maybe the best time to connect with a coach, right? If you're calling a college basketball coach, they've got a lot going on right now. So again, not saying that you shouldn't try to have communication during the season, but just realize if you're calling a coach tonight and they've got a game at 7 p.m., they're probably not going to pick up the phone and talk to you. So again, look at schedules, just be kind of common sense about that. Again, typically in the off season when coaches have more downtime, it's a little bit easier because they're more likely in their office and have a little bit more free time on
Sure,
their hands.
but recruiting never stops.
Never stops.
Never sleeps. 24/7, in season, out of season, doesn't matter. You just got to balance it, and that's something that a coach knows about. So, do what you can to get on the horn with a college coach. Get on the phone with a college coach. This comes after you have generated a target list. You have a good sense that that program is good for you. You've communicated a little bit with the college coach. You're pretty certain that they're receptive of you being possibly part of their program, and then really start to dive in. That phone call, that human interaction is very telling, right? Both for the student athlete and the college coach to try and figure out if it's a good fit.
Even a little thing, right? Again, just because you call that coach doesn't mean they're going to answer. So have a voicemail prepared, right? Know what you want to say. Don't leave a 7-minute voicemail giving every accolade that you've ever accomplished and every grade in the history of your academic career. Again, even script it out, right? It sounds silly, but the more prepared you are, the more educated you sound in a voicemail with that information. Again, if I'm a college coach and I hear a really strong voicemail from a student athlete, maybe you want to pick the phone up and call that person, or do a little bit of research on them and check out their video or their email, their NCSA profile. So again, just be prepared for all situations. And again, even if it's scripting out a 45-second voicemail, rehearse it, practice it. Go in front of a mirror and talk about, again, these things sound silly, but it's all little things like that can, again, maybe get you above the other recruits or get you that opportunity to speak with that
Yeah,
college
again,
coach.
7 calls, inbound calls a week. If this coach is trying to recruit 1,000 kids and you get a phone call proactively from a student athlete, that stands out in your mind. Right, that's the quickest way to say, hey, coach, I'm interested. I'm somebody you should be paying attention to, right? So make that move. It's a high-level, mature move to make. If you're well prepared for that, it's going to pay dividends. I think, I had a thought and I forgot about it.
Real quick, so again, we talked D1, D2, the coaches have restrictions and limitations. D3, NAI, junior colleges, there are no restrictions. So as a freshman in high school, you can get on the phone with the Division III coach, you can have that conversation. So again, knowing the rules of the different division levels, the sports, it's important as well. Again, our website, ncsasports.org, has a bunch of that information to help you know, again, if I'm going to call a coach as a sophomore in high school and then be upset that coach didn't call me back, if it's a Division I school, they can't call me back.
Right.
Again, knowing those sort of things too is really impactful and important.
I remember what I was going to say. You
I
said it about voicemail.
I was filling for you.
I appreciate that.
I was stretching for you.
30 to 45-second voicemail. You don't give them everything about your life story. That's what the NCSA profile's for.
Right.
If you send an email, send a link to your profile. Right. That literally tells your entire playing history. It's got highlight film, coach contact points, where you're going to be playing in the summer, everything, right? So it doesn't need to be that in-depth. If you've got all your information in one spot online, just send them that. They'll be able to do whatever they need to do with that. That was, that one escaped me for a minute.
All right, calling college coaches. Texting obviously is another big way. As a college coach, you're not too far removed from that world. How did you utilize texting? Is it something you relied on? I mean, for kids, that's what they're doing most of the time. They're comfortable texting. They're not always comfortable picking up the phone and talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So as a coach, how did you utilize that?
Primary drivers were email initially, again, with the purpose of getting them on the phone to really say, I am this interested to spend this kind of time and I want to hear your voice over the phone, right? Texting, for the most part, for me, was very logistical. Maybe setting up that phone call. A couple emails back and forth, shoot them a quick text. It's going to get to them a little bit quicker. Say, hey, would love to set something up for this Thursday at 8 p.m. Are you available? Not a primary driver for recruiting. I know that's how a lot of people do it, but it's just an ineffective way to communicate, right? With emails, you can at least send links, right? Get a little bit more text in there. And phone calls is going to be the best indicator. Texting, maybe I got a student athlete coming from on a junior day, or they're coming on an official visit over spring break in their sophomore or junior year. Hey, where are you? Parking your garage is up the hill. We're the second door, blah, blah, blah. That, it was mostly for that. So texting, again, not an ideal way. You probably don't want to open up, you're not going to have a coach's their cell phone number anyway. Right. If they give that to you, good, and you can go back and forth, but that's not, hey, coach, this is who I am, these are my stats, blah, blah, blah. Do that through email, put that on the NCSA profile, mostly for logistics.
Yeah, see, it seems like college coaches utilize texting as a way to kind of remind kids that they're recruiting them. If they're, it's a kid that's getting recruited, hey, congrats on your great game yesterday, or hey, I've been thinking about you, good luck with finals. You see some of that stuff a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's more of a way to kind of like kiss up to them a little bit and remind them, like, hey, I'm still here, I'm still thinking about you, I'm still recruiting you?
Personal story, a kid that I found through NCSA just 2 years ago. He was swimming for my club program that I came up through, and was from Wisconsin. And I just sent him a message, try to get him interested. I was in New York. I'm like, well, maybe if there's a connection there, I'll get him. I actually went through and checked out all of his messages and stuff. Super cool, right? Just to kind of see what was going on. But it's a decent way to get your information to a college coach and to have that connection, and just for those coaches to be able to kind of track that all the way through was interesting for me, from somebody from the outside, to really kind of see, just find somebody through NCSA and be able to utilize that and check out the stuff on their profile. So eventually he did come, and he's actually doing really well at Iona.
That's
I was pretty proud of that.
Where's the kid from, Wisconsin?
Wanakee.
Wanakee Warriors.
Yeah, that's right.
Only Wanakee in the world.
Interesting.
That's what the sign says when you enter Wanakee. Only Wanakee in the world.
Anyway.
Just like we talked about with phone calls, again, texting etiquette. You're not texting your girlfriend. You're not texting your sibling. You're not texting your buddy. Spell out words. Don't write the letter U. Spell out Y-O-U. Don't say THX. Write out thanks or thank you.
Formal. It's formal.
Yeah, again, little stuff like that can be, and it sounds, again, silly, a deal breaker almost between, if I have two kids I'm recruiting and this person's very well spoken and very proper with their texting, and this person's using slang and sending me emojis, like that can, again, it can be that little of a thing that may weigh the scale one way or the other.
It's an interview. This is sort of a job interview, right? And I think that's the best parallel for parents. So,
like when people come in here and they're wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and
could you imagine?
We can wear that every day, but we're not an interview. Put a suit and tie on.
Imagine that, yeah.
Cool. So texting we talked about. Again, very similar in terms of the NCAA rules. The contact date's June 15th or September 1st between sophomore and junior year, depending on the sport and depending on the division level. In addition, we talked a little bit about at the beginning, but social media has really become a tool that college coaches can use. It's a tool that I think student athletes think can be more impactful than it actually is to get seen. So again, it can be something that you can utilize to get things out there, but isn't going to be the solution for you getting recruited.
Nope, that's not the social platform that you want. I think the number one thing about social media is it can kind of add character and color to who a student athlete is, but coaches do not just troll Instagram and Twitter for high-level athletes. It's ineffective.
Too many.
Way too many. It's hard to find them. You don't know what you're looking at. You don't know what grad year. You don't know what that kid's grades are, right? He might be a highlight reel, but it doesn't matter if they're not going to be into your school. I think for the most part, what I used social media for a college coach was to market my program. I wanted to project who we were, what our culture was about, some of the cool things we were doing, training trips to Florida, et cetera, to get those student athletes in which I was interested a better understanding of what we were doing. Because again, I'm not trying to sell a false product. I want them to know exactly what our program is about, and the best way for me to do that was on social media, just kind of on the fly. But on the flip side of it, for student athletes, for families, that you can't just start an Instagram and say, hey, my highlight tapes are here. College coaches don't see that, right? So more than anything, you need a legitimate online place for your information to be. You can add, hey, here's my Twitter handle, right? Keep that professional. Have that, you can have a personal one on the side, fine. Maybe leave that private. But if you want coaches to know about you, put that in there. Here's my Twitter, here's my Instagram, but keep that professional to show them who you are and how involved in your sport you are. I think that would be the primary one.
Yeah, and that's stuff that you can link on your NCSA profile, right? You want to have that information available for coaches. And again, like Danny mentioned, you need to be professional with that. There are stories where college coaches stop recruiting a kid because of something they posted on social media.
A lot of stories.
That is 100% a fact. So if you're a parent, tell your kid to be careful what they're doing. Monitor their Twitter page. Monitor their Instagram. Again, that one post can be the difference between a college coach offering him a scholarship, offering him a roster spot, and saying, nope, we're moving on to the next kid.
Yep, a lot of kids out there, and a lot of kids with very similar profiles academically and athletically. You give one coach a reason to not recruit you, they're going to take that. They don't want to risk it, right? That's their program, that's their job on the line. When there's scholarships involved, they don't screw around with it, right? Yeah. So just something to pay attention to.
Coaches can follow kids. They can like tweets. I mean, you'll see that sort of in the same vein of the text messages where they'll kind of kiss up to you if they tweet out your new highlight video and they like it. But again, they're only following you. They're only doing that once you've been processed along with recruiting and you've gotten to the step where they've identified you, evaluated you, and again are using that as a way to kind of kiss up to you a little bit.
Yep, and that's okay, right? And pay attention to that stuff, right? Because that means they're paying attention to you. Cool. So, like I said, set most of your accounts to public unless you got a private one that you really just don't want anybody to see. You can set up a social media account specifically for your sport, right? Share those things with coaches. That's okay, right? If they can't contact you, they may want to know what you're doing. They may want to see maybe some of your training regimes. Any of that's good, right? Just to kind of show, again, I'm really involved in the sport. I care enough about this to broadcast it to the world. And they will follow some of that stuff. And if they do follow you, if they do like your stuff, take that as a good faith that they know about you and they're pretty interested in what they're doing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't waste time like that on social media if I wasn't genuinely interested as a coach.
And return the favor. Follow them back. Like their stuff. Pay attention to what they're posting about their program, just like Danny mentioned, right? They're going to send updates about the accolades they've got or what they're doing. So it's also a great platform for you to learn about that program and continue to keep updates. So then if you do get on the phone with that coach, hey coach, I saw on Twitter you guys did this.
Sure.
Again, that shows that awareness, that shows that that attentiveness that you are paying attention to their program and you're genuinely interested and not just wasting that coach's time.
But not all about the coach, right? If that coach is projecting something about their program that you don't really like, that's okay too, right? That is why you follow them and make sure that they have, you as the athlete have a pretty good understanding of what's happening with that program.
Yeah,
so
the majority of days too, I mean, you have, the program has a Twitter handle. The head coach has a Twitter handle. The assistant coaches all have Twitter handles, right? So again, follow them all. If it's a school that you're interested, if you've had some communication with them, don't just follow the head coach or the program. Try to expand that reach to as many of the coaches on the staff as possible.
Yep, it's about visibility at the end of the day.
The more people that know who you are, the better that's going to be for you.
Yeah, cool. So again, just, kind of in summary, I know we've covered a lot of things. You're number one, start early, understand what you're doing, be proactive about it, right? Your primary driver for most of this is going to be email up until the point where the official contact period happens, a little bit of texting back and forth, social media is for color. The end of the day, you need to get that college coach on the phone. Right? Get a voice on the phone, let them know who you are, why they should be recruiting you, and then ask them some questions about your program, right? You're trying to figure out if this is a good fit for you as well. So just kind of knowing those pieces, but you're only going to really be able to figure that out if you do get started early.
Right. The earlier you can start, the better off. Again, Danny mentioned, as a college coach, you're not waiting until a student athlete's junior year to start researching kids. That's when you've got your list already made of who you're calling or who you're reaching out to, right? And those phone calls are what lead to visits, what lead to scholarship offers, what lead to personal invites out to a camp or a game, those sort of things. So again, phone call isn't the end of it either. There's still steps afterwards that can begin with the communication. But again, for a coach to take a half hour out of their day to be on the phone with you or your student athlete, again, is a really good sign. But there are steps that you need to be taken to get to that point.
Yeah, but we'll next week dive into the why we're starting early. All right, so just know that you should. We'll talk about why next week.
Awesome. We got some questions rolling in here, so let's get to as many as we can here. Again, if you have anything, whatever platform you're on, jot it down, and we'll get to as many as we can here. So Judy's got a great question. Should you ask for a call, or do you just call?
I would say ask for a call. Again, you're going to set that up by electronic means earlier, email, text. You got to respect the coach's time as well, because like David had said, basketball, they're going into tournament season. Baseball, they're just getting started, right? They got a lot to figure out. So email them, text them, say, hey, this works for me. Here's a couple of times. Does that work on your end? And they're they're likely to be responsive to that and respect your time as well.
A great lengthy question here from Jones. I'm not going to read every word of it, but involves the contact dates. So her son has a profile with NCSA. Coaches are following him, which is awesome. It sounds like your student athlete is probably a sophomore in high school. So yes, the contact dates are critical in terms of when coaches can contact a student athlete and what they can't do until that point. So if a coach calls a student athlete prior to some of those important contact dates, that is an NCAA violation and they can get into a lot of trouble. So that's where those dates are really important in terms of the floodgates being able to open up and that coach being able to contact a student athlete. Again, typically that's either June 15th or September 1st between the sophomore and junior year based on the sport. And again, that's for D1 and D2 schools. No restrictions for D3 NAIA JUCO.
Correct. So again, website, ncsasports.org. Go to your sport specifically. A lot of good content on the recruiting timelines, what's permissible for my college coaches, but typically stuff going towards college coaches is always permissible.
Awesome. Talk about starting early. Chris's daughter's in 7th grade. Love it. D2 coach has showed a little bit of interest already since she went to a camp there. Is it a good idea to keep taking my daughter there to their camps, I'm assuming, so they can continuously see her? Can't hurt.
Can't hurt, but spread the wealth. Have a lot of options. If she likes the camp and just likes being there and likes the coaches, cool. Know why you're going to a camp. Doesn't hurt, but again, there's only so much time, money, energy in the world, right? So not a bad thing. If she's into that, cool, go crazy. But start to explore some other opportunities to go to camps because there's nothing wrong with that either.
Especially with her being in 7th grade.
Yep.
Don't put all your eggs in that basket. That school 2 years from now may not be the right fit. It may not offer her a degree, whatever the case might be. Again, you can still keep an interest or keep communication with that coaches by starting to send out emails, again, get your profile built, send that out to the coaches. There's other ways besides just going to a camp, to continue to have a coach be interested in your student athlete.
Correct.
All right, got a question here. It's sometimes hard to get in contact with a coach when you live abroad. That is very true. Do you ever recruit any international kids?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Got to find them somewhere.
Skype?
Right? Yeah. Sometimes it was
Google,
Skype.
what time is it in South Africa? Or?
All the time, right? And I had called a kid through WhatsApp from South Africa. Again, with the time zones, you just have to be prepared ahead of time. And I think it was like 2 p.m. my time and 9 p.m. his time. You just have to sort it out. So yeah, international kids. I work with kids from Canada, England, Poland, right? South Africa. Very, very common. And we have a lot of international families using NCSA for that purpose, right? Because they're as abroad as you come, and they need a way to be visible to college coaches and communicate. So coaches are looking for that. Athletes are looking for that. It's a good system.
2 years ago, I spoke to a swimmer from Iceland. The family had no idea what recruiting was, how it worked. Girl ended up getting a scholarship to swim at Fresno State. So Iceland to California.
Good for her, right? And if you're good, you can do it, right? It has nothing to do with being international. Coaches will understand that. They'll be able to walk you through that. In some cases, there's like an English equivalency test that you'd have to take, but most student athletes of a certain age are pretty fluent for the most part, is what I found. So interesting.
Cool. Question here about again, more phone calls. Daughter's a 11th grader right now, golfer. Most communication has been via email. Is it a good idea to leave a voicemail for coaches who are busy into their spring season?
Not a bad thing. You just have to understand that you may not hear back. You also need to make sure that you're targeting the right school.
It sounds like there was some email communication, which is good.
Yeah, and I think that is good, but I think I would prompt that initially with the coach by email or text. So if you have their number, text them, email, say, hey coach, I have some questions, would love to get on the phone with you at some point. Could we schedule something? Here in the next few days or within a week or something. Coaches aren't afraid to work on the weekends. It happens. It's a 7.
And by they aren't afraid, it means they work every
do all the time. So they are available, and in the sake of recruiting, if you have somebody that you're really interested in, you're going to make time to do that. But again, out of respect for the coach's time, set something up by email, respect your own time as well. You know what you have available. Try and figure out, again, schedules if they're in season, just when they have games coming up. They may be prepared for that, but catch them on an off night.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance too, right? You don't want to be calling the coach 5 times a week and keep leaving voicemails and then be that annoying pest that they're like, stop calling me, right? So again, if it's once a month, maybe to update them on something or to congratulate them on something, again, that can be a nice little touch. But again, just realize that if that coach doesn't call you back the first time, it's not the end of the world. But if you leave 3 or 4 voicemails and the coach isn't calling you back, again, maybe there's a lack of interest on the coach side, and you should be moving on to some other phone numbers to be called.
Correct.
All right, next question we got coming in. That's not even a question, it's a comment. I'll let you read this. This is a good one.
All right. NCSA was such a big part of my son getting a scholarship to the school he wanted. Thank you. Kevin Charles, appreciate that comment a lot. We work hard for the student athletes and their families. We understand that you guys work hard to get to where you want to be. This is a tough process. And we talk about it all the time. It really falls on the shoulders of the student athlete and their family to be proactive. And if you started this in 7th and 8th grade, it can be a full-time job, especially once you get down to it. So happy to hear that you guys found some success. You're doing it at the school you chose. Obviously, that didn't just drop out of the sky and fall into their lap.
Right.
There was a lot of work that went into that. So,
and we feel good to play a little part in that, right?
A little part. We're not going to take any of the credit there, but a little part in that.
Awesome. Melissa Hart-Moss, son's been emailed by coaches from schools he is not interested in. Is it okay that he wrote them back a polite email declining to move forward?
I do think that's okay. If you know what your target list of schools in and it's totally out of the range, tell that coach. They're not afraid to hear no. Again, they hear no a lot. The worst thing that happens is they don't hear anything at all. You got a whole host of kids that you're interested in and they never get back to you. You don't know if you have the right email, you don't know if you're in the right spot, right? So in some cases, just hearing no is okay, and they're going to move on. I'd never expected to hit 100% rate when I was recruiting. It was closer to like 1 or 2%.
That would be incredible.
But it just doesn't happen. So if you're very confident that that's not a good fit for you, especially like junior, senior year, even kind of late into sophomore year, perfectly fine. If you're just getting started, exploring opportunities, don't burn any bridges early. Say, hey, coach, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at yet. Want to keep an open line of communication. Could you send me more information on your program? Pretty plain and simple, and they'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, in this day and age, too, with how often coaches are shifting or moving jobs or going somewhere else, that school may not be the right fit. That coach is at your junior year, but then that coach leaves and goes to a different school, and all of a sudden that's a school you're interested in. Have you burned that bridge, or have you kept the line of communication open? So
Sure.
again, we talked about it with texting, with social media. Be adult about it. Again, treat this like you would an interview. Treat this like you would a potential employer, and it can be helpful. How do I get one of those NCSA T-shirts? We got some cool swag, right? It's a pretty cool logo we got
Still
going
waiting
on
on the
here.
pullover, man.
I got some strong pullover game. I think I have like 7 T-shirts. I have like 4 quarter zips, a couple hoodies, a couple hats. I don't know the answer to that question, but we can get you lunch now. All right, one more question. We're getting into the half-hour point here, so we'll end with this one. My daughter's already spoken to some D2 and D3 coaches. They have said, come to our campus or let us know when you can. Is that official? So again, there's an unofficial visit and there's an official visit. I'll let you kind of break them down.
Maybe. It's tough to tell. They would usually coin that as an official visit. Typically what's coming up here for a lot of sophomores and juniors, they're going to go visit campuses over spring break. So it's a very intentional move that families make once they have that target list, say, hey, we're just going to go check this out. If that's a school you're really considering and it matches up with what you're doing athletically, let the coach know. Say, hey, coach, I'm going to be on campus. I want to do a campus tour. Can we sit down and talk? Let them know well in advance, right? Again, they got a lot of stuff going on, but they will absolutely make time. If you're going to make that effort to be there, of course they're going to pay attention if they're interested in you. Just ask. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Say, hey, coach.
So technically official means that the coaches are paying for
you.
Some or most or all of your trip. So that's what defines an official visit over an unofficial visit. I can go on an unofficial visit to 800 schools if I want.
Sure.
But I can only take 5 official visits where the coaches are paying
And you
for.
claim that. You sign that to the NCAA. They communicate that back with the eligibility center. Right. But at that point, in some cases at your upper level, those coaches are buying your flight. They're putting you up in a hotel, either food. In the dorms. Food. You can get like a stipend. We used to get like $40.
Right.
But it's pretty much for food. But anyway, so they're like paying for you to be there at that time. Unofficial visits, like you said, really valuable stuff. To just get on campus, get a feel, maybe meet with the coach, meet a couple of the athletes, take a tour, right? No harm in that. And that's really what athletes are starting to set up here in sophomore year, junior year over their spring break. And coaches are prepared for that. We intentionally set up our junior days over spring break because we knew they were going to get kids there. And at this point in the contact period with juniors, I was really pushing for them to come on an unofficial visit to my campus so I could meet them in person. And for me as a coach, that meant that if they made the effort to come to me, they were pretty serious about what we were doing. And I kind of used that as a barometer for their interest as well.
And typically coaches and schools and programs, they don't have an unlimited amount of official visits that they're willing to give. Coaches have recruiting budgets. They're limited in terms of how much money they can spend on that stuff. So again, if you get to the point of an official visit, that's a really encouraging sign. Mm-hmm. And again, if a coach is willing to pay money for you to come to their program, for you to stay at the hotel, whatever the case is, again, that's pretty advanced along that recruiting timeline. But it's, again, typically a really good sign because I'm sure when you were at Iona, you didn't have a $12 million budget to spend on official visits. You had a number that you knew that you couldn't go over.
Plus, at some point, it becomes unmanageable. Like, you're not going to have 20 kids on an official visit for the size of our program. Coordinating that was tough. We just, I intentionally picked weekends where we didn't have a meet, or maybe we did have a home meet. I was trying to push kids in a certain way based on what was going on, and then just organizing that. That was a lot of work as an assistant. Just, hey, what classes are you going to go to? What time is your campus tour? Just logistically, again, when are you going to be able to arrive? When can you leave? I'd have to get a host for the student athletes.
Your student athletes already there to kind of
And then,
around.
again, out of respect for the student athletes, that's 4 weekends where they're really invested in recruiting. They understand the value in that, but we're still taking time away from them for studies or social time or just time being away from the program, right? So there was a lot to consider that, and those were a big deal. But if I got a kid on an official visit, high percentage chance I was going to offer them a scholarship.
Awesome. We appreciate the questions. Again, a lot of great stuff here regarding communicating with college coaches, the different platforms, the different ways, texting, emailing, calling. So again, a lot more information on our website, ncsasports.org. You can also email us live at ncsasports.org if you have any specific questions about your student athlete. Danny or I would be more than happy to reach out and make sure that you are in a good spot for your student athletes recruiting process. Well, as we do every NCSA Live, we're going to ring our bell. That signifies here within our offices a student athlete committing to a college program, something that, again, we're very proud of. So our first shout out is going to go to Alyssa from Again, another Division I program. Again, Dylan had a lot of Division I interest, had 366 coaches view his profile. His family started early. They started beginning of his freshman year is when they got started with their NCSA profile, and obviously the hard work that he put in and his family put in certainly paid off for him. Let you take Todd here.
Cool. Todd Henning Jr. He's going to Walsh University. That's a D2 program in North Canton, Ohio. He's got a good-looking photo there. I like that. He looks like a strong kid. But he found some success through this as well, right? Division II program that is scholarship offering. Obviously, it was a good fit for him all the way around. He was working with us, right? Had the profile, went through the recruiting assessment, was in our network, and used those tools and resources. Again, taking the initiative there to land at Walsh University. So congratulations to those three. That is huge. That is everything we do it for. It makes us happy, right? We ring the bell. We're obnoxious about it, but it's only in the best possible way for those that are finding success with the program. So, happy
and
to
follow us
help
on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. We post a lot of our commitments that we have, and again, it's something that we're very proud of to recognize the student athletes for putting in a bunch of hard work. And again, we're always proud to play a tiny part in their process and their success as well.
Sure.
Cool. We talked about it next week. We're going to hit on the importance of starting the recruiting process early. Should be a great topic, something that a lot of families don't realize they can and should be doing, something that we've talked about the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue to talk about every day for the rest of our NCSA lives. So again, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Time, as we always are, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share it, send it out to anyone that you think could benefit from learning about recruiting, and we'll do our best to, again, educate and entertain, as we hopefully always do.
Cool. Any additional questions, anything about your athletes specifically, again, send that email live@ncsasports.org. You can get in touch with me. If you guys are looking to set up a profile, do a recruiting assessment, get into our network, contact me directly. But until next week, we have guest host Cody Buchanan is with us tomorrow. This was kind of his brainchild.
Next Tuesday.
Sorry, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Sorry.
There's
Cody
nothing
Buchanan.
in these cups, by the way, but they're new, so I feel like I should.
They are
take
pretty
a
cool.
fake sip.
Yeah, I dig them. So you got the NCSA on the one side.
Very like
and live on
morning
the other.
show, like
Yeah.
Regis
It's
and Kathy.
morning somewhere, right?
Alaska, Hawaii, right?
Sure, why not? Yeah. So if it's morning, cheers to you guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we'll see you.
See you next week.